I could talk about that for hours. Let me not. So, all right, you going through this experience first, second time. Did you quit your job after the first child or the second child?
So, when I was on my maternity leave with my second son, this is when I kind of got into UGC, and UGC stands for user generated content. It's basically when you work with companies and brands and you create different type of content for the brands to use for advertising or for their social media pages or basically any kind of like video content that gets posted on the brand's social media pages, their website, etc. I
Mm-hmm.
got into it by a chance, by like a mistake almost. So I've had like a side hustles my entire life. Like I've been an entrepreneurial type of person my entire life. So I've had a jewelry brand called Bear Sandals since 2013. And I was actually hiring creators to create content using my jewelry on one of these UGC apps. And I got this footage back and these girls sent me these videos and I was like, oh, I'm curious how this works on the creator side. Like I'm just curious to see what is the process for doing this. So I signed up for one of these UGC apps. I created a profile and I was like, oh, baby stuff. I need baby stuff. A crib, a stroller, baby bottles, swaddles, apply, apply, apply. So I just literally went down the list and I started to apply for all of these content jobs that involved being a parent, being a mom, having a kid. And literally these brands would start sending me products to my house that I actually needed. I didn't have to buy and spend money on them to make videos with my phone. And I was like, this is amazing. What the hell is this? Like, I've just discovered a gold mine because I was, working with these companies while on maternity leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually it got to the point where I had to go back to work because my maternity leave the second time around only lasted 6 months, unfortunately. So I went back to work. And I was also driving an hour and a half.
Oh,
Yeah, it was a very, very long commute. My kids were in daycare for like 10 hours a day, and it was just like insane. And I was thinking to myself, like, I'm like, this something has got to change. Something has got to shift where I cannot allow my kids to be in daycare for 10 hours a day. They're miserable. We see them 2 hours every single day. It's just impossible.
yeah.
So I started to think to myself, like, how can I take this little hobby of me creating content and make it into like a maybe a full-time job? And so,
Mm-hmm.
of course, I started to take it a little bit more seriously. And then it kind of pivoted into me getting more serious about it, accepting more brand deals, and then growing my business to the point where I was eventually able to leave my teaching job. So that kind of worked out.
You think? I love that. Okay, so I've kind of researched, I see YouTube videos about UGC. It's actually something that I want to get into, right?
Hmm.
So let's say for me, I'm starting off from scratch. Like, what would the process be? Would it be like, okay, you mentioned there's some apps where you can submit yourself to. Okay, maybe that's
Hmm.
like step one. Then is there a certain way you need to package yourself? Like, what would you suggest?
Sure. I think that like if anybody's listening who is like, oh, this could be interesting. I mean, the only thing that I would say is a definite is to research because the very first step is you have to educate yourself on like what is UGC, what kind of content brands are looking for, what kind of videos you will be making. Because a lot of the times girls get into it and they're like, oh, well, we'll just make pretty unboxing videos and like, tap our nails on the product packaging and like that's not what brands are looking for. You need to be able to talk to your phone like it's your best friend and basically talk about a product or a service like you're talking to your bestie and essentially that's what brands want. So the first step would be to research and really get an understanding of what UGC is, have a clear understanding of what that would actually look like for you, and if it fits into your lifestyle. Because if you're somebody who values privacy, if you don't like to have your face out there on the internet, this may not be for you. If you feel uncomfortable talking on camera, if you are shy, or maybe it just doesn't come naturally to you, it doesn't mean that you can't learn that skill, but it may not be something that you want to get into just because it does require you to putting yourself out there so much. So get really clear on what UGC is if this is something that you want to get into. And then I would say get a couple of equipment pieces like a tripod, a few lighting pieces like a clip-on light for the phones. Those are great if you're on a budget. They're fairly cheap. And then I would get on the apps. Definitely get on the apps and create like a pitch video where you are talking on camera and you're basically imagine that you're talking to a brand, but your brand is your best friend and you're telling them why they should hire you and why should they should work with you as a content creator. And basically you take that pitch video and upload that pitch video to those UGC apps. And that way you can kind of start working with brands as soon as possible. You can kind of get your foot in the door and get in the habit of collaborating with another company and going through the work flow and work process and building that relationship. So that way, when you're ready to kind of graduate from the apps, you have a good bank of content that you can use to build a really good portfolio with. Because a lot of the times on the internet, people will say, grab products around your house, make content with those products around your house, and then pitch brands. Yeah, if you have like 6 months and you don't have a free, like you don't have a job and you have like 20 hours a day to do that, yeah, do that, because that is a really bad advice, because most people that are getting into UGC, they've never made content before. Like they need to practice making content, and, taking products around your house, putting it in a portfolio, and then pitching is not going to land you brand deals, because of the fact that that content is probably going to be not very good. So you need to get those content reps in through the UGC apps, because UGC apps connect you with a brand. They pay very little, but the requirements are also very, very low. So you don't have to
Gotcha.
be a professional. You can be a complete beginner and still get paid for your content and still practice learning those skills that's necessary to take it to the next level. So I think that, in short, to answer your question, it would be to research, create a pitch video, get on the apps, and start applying for as many jobs as you possibly can to kind of like start getting in the habit of working with brands, figuring it out.